Hello, Algebra 2. Here we are with lesson 5.1. Day 1, this would just been the first half. We kind of moved this lesson 5.1 around so that it was right next to the lessons that it was going to relate to more. So that's why we took this half and moved it into chapter 6. All right, we're talking about exponent properties that you will need to know for the upcoming lessons. All right, so this is all on page 303, and you should have access to a copy of my note sheet, either from an email or on a website here. Okay, so exponent properties from page 303. We have the product of powers. You're multiplying two things that both have powers. Okay, they have to be the same big number, or the base, same big number. They have to both be x, or both be y, or both be 2, or both be a 3 to do this, to add your exponents together. So when you're multiplying two things together that have the same big number, you get to add the exponents together. So if I have 5 squared times 5 to the 4th, that's going to be equal to 5 to the 6th. All right, if we're adding our exponents when we multiply, what do you think is going to happen when we divide? We're going to do the opposite. We're going to subtract. Okay, top minus bottom. Top minus bottom. Or, and I'll talk about this later too, I kind of just go with big minus little and put the answer on the same side that the big one was at. But for now, we're just going to roll top minus bottom. So 5 to the 8th, divide by 5 to the 3rd, 8 minus 3, my answer is 5 to the 5th. Okay, negative exponents. If I have x to the negative a, the negative part just means reciprocal. So flip it upside down, and now it's 1 over x to the positive a power. All right, 4 to the negative second power, flip it upside down, put 4 in the bottom. 1 over 4 squared. Okay, what if it was negative on the bottom? Okay, still means flip it. So 1 over 3 to the negative second. Now it's negative on the bottom, so when I flip it, this goes up to the top. 3 squared on the top. Power of a power, power parentheses power. This is when we get to multiply the exponents. X to the a power, parentheses to the b power, is going to be x to the a times b. Okay? So we have 2 to the 3rd, parentheses squared. Okay, so that is going to be 2 to the 6th, 3 times 2. Power of a product. X times y in parentheses to the a power. Okay, you can distribute when it's multiplication. When it's multiplication through the whole inside, then you can distribute the power to the pieces that are inside. So 4w squared would be 4 squared times w squared, or 16w. Same thing when it's power of a quotient. X over y to the a power. If it's all division, multiplication and division, then we can push that into each piece. X to the a power and y to the a power. Okay, we got 2/3 squared. So 2 squared over 3 squared, that's going to be 4/9. Okay, kind of just a special case here, one you need to remember, the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power equals 1. All right, if you want to know why, or think about why that is, okay, you're going to have to rewind this all the way back up here to the quotient one, where we're subtracting. Okay, if I had x to the 4th over x to the 4th, I know, on one hand, I know that something divided by itself has to equal 1. Now, if I do the quotient of powers property, 4 minus 4 is x to the 0, and I know that something over itself has to equal 1, so that's what's happening when you get something to the 0 power. You might not always see the step before it, but if you see something to the 0 power, okay, that means that it was same thing over the same thing, which is going to be 1. Okay, simplifying these monomials, one single piece. It could have a lot of parts to that piece, but it's one single piece. No plus signs or minus signs separating these things into multiple pieces. Okay, you're done simplifying when there are no power of powers left. Each base, the big letter or number, only appears once. So you've combined all the big letters / numbers together that you can. All fractions are reduced to simplest form, and no negative exponents left. Okay, if you have a negative exponent, you need to flip it to the other side, make it positive, and then that's when you know you're done. All right, let's see if we can apply these properties. Okay, we have a to the negative third times a squared b to the fourth times c to the negative 1. So the first thing I am seeing is a to the negative third times a squared. I can do a product of powers property, and I can add those together. So negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. Still got that b to the fourth. Still got that c to the negative 1. Okay. No power of powers. There's each base is only there once. All fractions, yep. Oh, no negative exponents left. So the a has a negative exponent and the c has a negative exponent. So those are going to flip underneath to the bottom. B to the fourth on top. And we're going to move these to the bottom. A to the first, C to the first. And if it's to the first, you really don't need the first, like the 1 on them. You can just do that also, just AC. Okay, we got a little practice here with the quotient of powers property. 10 minus 2 is going to be n to the 8th. Okay, and then with this one here, part B, I got 2 ways to show you here. Okay, so if you're just going to stick with top minus bottom, which is, how the property is written, 2 minus 10 is negative 8. So we'd write down n to the negative 8, and then, because it's negative, we have to flip it. Okay, now another little trick that I do that can kind of save you this one little half step there in the middle is I do the biggest power minus the little power, and the answer goes on the same side of the fraction bar that the big power was. So over here, I would have done 10 minus 2 is 8. So it's going to be n to the 8th on the top because that's where the biggest one was. Over here, I'm seeing 10 and 2 again. I'm going to do 10 minus 2 for n to the 8th. But I'm going to put my answer on the bottom because that's where the biggest one was. Okay, so that can kind of save you half a step if you just do the big power minus the little power and put your answer where the big power was, top or bottom. Ooh, we got 3a to the third over b to the fourth, parentheses squared. So we got multiplication and division going on here. There's no plus or minus, so I can push this into everything. Okay, so I'm squaring all of these. So we'll go the long way here first. So this is really 3 to the first power. Okay, so we're going to do power of a power. 2 times 1 is 2, so this is 3 squared. 2 times 3 is 6. So we have a to the 6th, and then 2 times 4 is 8. B to the 8th. And we know what 3 squared is, so 9 a to the 6th over b to the 8th. Okay? Now, kids will get messed up because they think they're just taking the 2 to that 3, and then they think, oh, well, I'm just going to add this, and it's going to be a to the 5th. You're actually multiplying. Or the other thing kids will do is, oh, I multiply the numbers. A to the 3rd squared is a to the 6th. 3 times 2 is 6. So then I must multiply here too. You're multiplying the exponent. And the tricky thing is, if there's no exponent, it's really a 1. So when it just said 3 with no exponent up there, it's really 3 to the 1st. So that's kind of tough to remember. Ooh, we got a big division problem next. -7, a to the 5th, c to the 5th, d to the 4th, over 21, a to the 7th, d squared, c squared. Okay? So with my numbers, I can reduce that. -7 over 21 is going to reduce to -1/3. And again, if it's the 1, you really don't need to write it down, but for our purposes here, just showing the work here, we're going to show it. Okay, now I have A's, D's, and C's. Now the nice part is the A's are matched up, so it's kind of easier to see. Okay, the big one is 7, so I'm going to do 7 minus 5 is 2, and I'm going to go a to the 2nd on the bottom, because that's where the bigger power was. And they try to trick us here with the C's and D's. They're a little out of order. So c to the 5th on top, c to the 2nd on the bottom. 5 minus 2 is going to be c to the 3rd on the top, because that's where the bigger c power was. 4 minus 2 is going to be d squared on the top, because that's where the bigger d power was. Okay. Let's see, there's just a little small one right here. Let's see if you can handle this on your own. Negative x to the 3rd, y to the 5th, over x squared, y to the 3rd. Let's see what you got there. Okay, pretty straightforward. Everything's going to be on the top. 3 minus 2 is x to the 1st. Don't forget the negative. If you want to write x to the 1st, you can put the 1 there. Otherwise, if you just write x, it's assumed that it's a 1. 5 minus 3, we're going to have y squared on top as well. Okay, next one. It's kind of similar to the number 3 that we did, but there's got a lot of stuff on the inside. Okay, now, here's a tip. If you can simplify inside the parentheses first, I would do that. I would simplify inside these parentheses first, because then you're going to have smaller numbers to work with. Okay, if you think about the order of operations, PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, okay, P parentheses is first. Do inside the parentheses first. So it is okay to simplify inside here first. Now, if you pushed this power of 4 to everything, you'll still be okay, and you could probably get the right answer, but you're going to have a lot bigger exponents, and 8 to the 4th is going to be big, 24 to the 4th is going to be really big, and that might be a little bit tougher to reduce, okay? So just kind of reduce this first a little bit. 8 over 24 is going to reduce to 1/3. And again, you don't need to put the 1 on the top. A squared on top, a to the 3rd on the bottom. 3 minus 2 is 1. A to the 1st on the bottom. That's where the bigger one was. C to the 3rd on top, c squared on the bottom. 3 minus 2 is 1. C to the 1st on the top. Much easier now to do this. 1 to the 4th power is 1. C to the 4th power. C to the 1st, 1 times 4 is going to be c to the 4th. 3 to the 4th, 1 times 4 is 4, and 1 times 4 is 4, a to the 4th. Okay, we can do 3 to the 4th. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 the 4th time is 81. So c to the 4th over 81, a to the 4th. Okie dokes. Last one, we have 5 times x to the 4th y to the 2nd times 2x to the 5th y to the 6th, all of that over 20x to the 3rd y to the 5th. Okay, because this is all multiplication and division, and there's no addition or subtraction, really you could do this in any order. You could simplify these and then multiply, or you can multiply and then divide, or whatever you want to do here. I would recommend taking care of the top and then reducing with the bottom. So numbers times numbers, 5 times 2 is 10 on the top, x to the 4th times x to the 5th. When we multiply two things, we get to add their exponents. The only time we multiply exponents is when it was like on number 5, power parentheses power. Here that's not the case, so we're just adding. 4 plus 5 is x to the 9th. Y squared times y to the 6th is y to the 8th on top there. On the bottom, we have our 20, x to the 3rd, y to the 5th. Looks pretty nice. 10 over 20 is going to reduce to 1/2. Again, you don't need to put the 1 on the top. I'm just putting it there so you can kind of see what's happening. 9 minus 3 is x to the 6th on the top. 8 minus 5 is y to the 3rd on the top. That's where the biggest one was. Okay, so if you just had x to the 6th, y to the 3rd over 2, that's fine. You don't need the 1. 1 times something is still that same thing. Okay, so those are just a quick review of our exponent properties. You probably had those a long time ago, maybe in 6th or 7th grade math. Just a quick little brush up here on those. Page 307, 1 to 4. And then I believe that you have to turn the page. So this might be 308 for this one. The 1 to 4 should be pretty simple, pretty straightforward, basic stuff. The 41 to 49 odd, it might be a little bit more difficult, but those are odds, so you can definitely check yourself in the back of the book. Or I don't remember if this book has the answers right at the end of each chapter, if they have them all piled up in the back of the book. But I'm sure you are aware of where they are by now. So there you go, folks. Thanks for watching, and best of luck.